You won't last a minute against me, human. The alien princess had no idea who she confronted. The starfield stretched endlessly outside the massive windows of the Valith royal flagship, a gleaming vessel of alien design, sleek and sharp, with lines that seemed to slice the void itself. On the bridge, Princess Zyria stood tall, her multifaceted eyes reflecting the distant suns, and her posture radiating authority. Her fingers tapped lightly on the control panel, the only sign that her mind was actively calculating. Before her in the center of the bridge was Lieutenant Marcus Hale, the human envoy from Earth. He was unarmed, and yet he did not tremble. He smiled calmly, his blue eyes steady under Zyria's intense gaze. To any observer, it looked like a foolish defiance. But Marcus was not afraid. Fear had never been a human luxury. Humans thrived in the very moments others panicked. "You won't last a minute against me, human," Zyria said, her voice both melodic and commanding. Her tone carried a weight of centuries of training, of battles fought, of worlds conquered. "Do you even understand what you are facing?" Marcus tilted his head slightly, his calm smile unwavering. "I think I understand enough," he replied. "You might be the best in your empire, but you haven't met humans before." Zyria raised an eyebrow, intrigued and slightly annoyed. Few spoke to her this way, and fewer still survived the arrogance. "Humans, what makes you think your kind could match the Valith elite? Your species barely manages interstellar travel, let alone combat or diplomacy in my domain." Marcus shrugged. "Maybe we're not as fast or as strong or as armored as you, but humans have something many species forget. We think differently, and we never give up." The princess laughed, a sound like delicate glass ringing in the cold air of the flagship. "Bravery is admirable, human. Foolishness, however, is fatal." She turned sharply, pressing a series of controls. The floor beneath Marcus shifted slightly, rearranging itself into a simulation arena. Holographic panels flickered to life, projecting alien landscapes filled with obstacles, dangers, and combat challenges. "You will face me in this simulation," Zyria said, her tone sharp. "If you survive, it will only be through luck. If you fail, well, humans are fragile creatures. I doubt your species can even handle humiliation without breaking." Marcus's eyes scanned the arena, taking in the terrain. Jagged cliffs, energy barriers, holographic enemies programmed to attack aggressively. It was all alien technology, designed to test the limits of body and mind. Yet he did not flinch. Instead, he smiled just faintly, as if enjoying a puzzle he had been waiting for. "I don't rely on luck," he said simply. "I rely on thinking ahead." Zyria blinked. No human had ever dared to speak so confidently under her authority. Even the high-ranking alien officers who reported to her rarely displayed such boldness. Marcus's calmness sparked a flicker of curiosity, and perhaps the tiniest hint of irritation. "Very well," she said, activating the simulation fully. "Then let us see what you are made of." The arena shifted instantly. The walls of the bridge seemed to dissolve into a swirling vortex of light and virtual reality. Marcus found himself standing on a narrow ledge overlooking a canyon that seemed to stretch endlessly. Holographic drones buzzed and darted, programmed to attack any human movement. Energy barriers sprang up in patterns meant to trap or mislead him. Zyria's voice echoed in the virtual space. "Move quickly, human. Fail, and I will consider you broken before the galaxy has even heard of you." Marcus moved, slow at first, careful, analyzing the drone's flight patterns. They were faster than any human could hope to be, and far more precise. Yet he noticed something the holographic systems did not account for: predictable patterns in seemingly random motion. He anticipated each drone's trajectory, dodging and weaving with small, efficient movements. He used the canyon walls for leverage, bouncing from ledge to ledge, always one step ahead. Zarya watched, her multifaceted eyes narrowing. This human, he moved with intelligence. He did not fight blindly. and he survived each wave of drones without visible effort. Her simulation was designed to push even the most elite Veilith soldiers to the brink, yet Marcus remained unshaken. The first trap came in the form of a holographic energy net, descending rapidly to ensnare him. Instinctively, Zyria expected him to panic, yet Marcus leapt, twisted, and landed on a precarious ledge, just inches from certain failure. Interesting, Zyria muttered. She had trained to recognize all forms of movement. Humans were supposed to be too clumsy, too slow, but Marcus, he adapted, and he adapted fast. As the simulation continued, Marcus faced more challenges: laser grids, shifting floors, and holographic predators with claws and fangs. Each obstacle was designed to exploit human weakness: size, agility, stamina. And yet, Marcus consistently used his wits to survive. Sometimes he tricked the simulations into colliding with each other. Sometimes he used the holographic environment itself to block attacks. Every move was measured, precise, and unexpected. From her observation deck, Zyria's pride began to show cracks. The human had no power comparable to hers. No physical enhancements, no alien strength, no centuries of training, but he was thinking 10 steps ahead. He was predictable in unpredictability, which was something she had never considered possible. The simulation grew harder. Holographic cliffs crumbled, energy barriers became more complex, and drones multiplied into swarms. Yet Marcus adapted to each change, never hesitating, always finding a solution. Zyria leaned forward, her voice calm but sharp. "You are faster than I anticipated." Humans have surprising reflexes, but speed and thinking alone will not defeat me. Marcus responded with a small smirk. "I'm not trying to defeat you by speed or strength. I'm trying to survive while learning your patterns." "Learning my patterns?" Zyria asked, her curiosity now mixed with challenge. "Yes," Marcus said. "Every species has weaknesses, even the strongest. You rely on rules and traditions. You calculate probabilities. I'm just exploring the exceptions." Zaria's officers whispered among themselves, astonished. She ignored them, her eyes locked on the human. He wasn't just surviving, he was teaching her something about human unpredictability. Finally, Zyria decided to escalate. The simulation intensified, creating a scenario where Marcus had to navigate a collapsing bridge over a bottomless chasm while being attacked by multiple holographic predators. Any misstep would mean failure. Marcus paused for a heartbeat, then acted. He used not only his body but his mind, triggering holographic systems to collide in midair, turning the predators against each other. Then he leapt, twisted in the air, and landed safely on the other side. Zyria's jaw tightened. This human had not only survived the ultimate test, he had done so with ingenuity and composure that rivaled her best soldiers. For a moment, the bridge was silent. The only sound was the soft hum of the flagship's engines. Zyria stared at Marcus, a mix of shock, curiosity, and begrudging respect in her eyes. "You are not like the others," she said finally. "I'm human," Marcus replied simply, smiling faintly. "We adapt, we survive, and sometimes we even outsmart the strongest." Zyria felt something stir within her, an emotion alien and uncomfortable: admiration. She had trained to defeat the galaxy's best, yet this human had survived every challenge without falling. She straightened, regaining her composure. "This does not mean you have won," she said, her tone cold but measured. "The galaxy will not bow to humans just because one survives a test." Marcus shrugged. "I never said it would, but sometimes surviving teaches you more than victory." Zyria studied him. He was unarmed, physically weaker than her, and yet there was an unshakable confidence about him. She realized that humans, with all their flaws, had a type of intelligence and courage that no alien could fully predict or control. "Interesting," she muttered. "Perhaps I underestimated your species." "I think you did," Marcus said, his calm smile unchanging. Zyria's lips curved into a faint, reluctant smile. "We shall see, human. This is only the beginning." And with that, she deactivated the simulation. The bridge returned to its normal state. The drones vanished, the energy barriers dissolved, and the holographic landscapes collapsed. Marcus stood unscathed, brushing dust from his uniform as if nothing extraordinary had happened. The officers on the bridge stared in amazement while Zyria's mind raced. This human was clever, unpredictable, and remarkably composed under pressure. She had faced many species, many warriors, many diplomats. None had made her pause, none had made her rethink her assumptions. None until Marcus Hale. "I will admit," she said quietly, more to herself than to anyone else, "this human is unusual." Marcus glanced at her, his calm eyes meeting hers. "You said it yourself, Princess. You didn't know who you were confronting." Zyria looked away, her pride prickling, but she could not hide the truth. Humans were far more dangerous than she ever imagined, not through brute force, but through cunning, adaptability, and spirit. The first round of confrontation had ended, but the war of wits had only begun. And somewhere deep in her mind, Zyria knew one thing for certain: humans would not be easy to dismiss. The human had survived the first test. Princess Zyria had expected a faltering, a stumble, a spark of fear that would reveal human weakness. Yet Marcus Hale had walked through her deadly simulation as if it were nothing more than a simple obstacle course. Now, she could not afford to underestimate him again. The next day, the bridge of the Valith Royal flagship seemed even more imposing. Holographic panels displayed fleets, worlds, and interstellar maps, all humming with quiet power. Zyria moved with purpose, her posture radiating both command and anticipation. She had spent hours recalculating Marcus's likely tactics. If she wanted to maintain her pride, she would need to escalate the trials, tests designed not just for strength, but for intelligence, resourcefulness, and resilience. Marcus waited in the center of the bridge, calm as ever. He had been briefed that today's trial would be more complex, but he showed no sign of concern. Humans thrived in situations where others panicked. Zyria addressed him directly. "Today, we step into a challenge that combines your mind and body against the unknown. Every detail has been designed to expose the limits of human adaptability." Marcus nodded. "I like challenges." The simulation activated. This time, the arena was not a single canyon or obstacle course. It was a massive alien city, holographic but incredibly lifelike. Towers stretched high into the virtual sky, streets twisted in complex patterns, and alien citizens moved realistically, unaware of the danger. Marcus could see drones hidden among the structures, programmed to attack if he acted hastily. Zyria's voice resonated in the simulation. "You have limited time to navigate this city and reach the central tower. Fail, and you will be considered insufficient. Remember, human, your species has never survived a trial like this." Marcus looked around calmly. He noticed the drone's movement patterns, the artificial signals in the holographic air, even the rhythm of the city's lights. He understood immediately that every element had a predictable cycle, even in chaos. He began to move. Slowly, deliberately, weaving between the holographic crowds and avoiding detection by the drones. He didn't charge forward like a fool. He observed, calculated, and adapted. Zyria's eyes narrowed. The human was clever, yes, but cleverness alone would not save him. She initiated the first real challenge: sudden structural collapses. Buildings began to fall around Marcus, creating barriers, traps, and dead ends. Most species, when confronted with such destruction, would panic. They would run blindly, fall into traps, or get trapped themselves. Marcus, however, used the falling debris to his advantage. A crumbling bridge became a stepping platform. Falling walls blocked drones' attacks. He was turning the simulation against itself. Zyria's admiration for the human grew, though she refused to admit it. No being she had tested before could survive this many adaptive challenges. And Marcus wasn't just surviving, he was thriving in adversity. The next trial was subtler. Hidden in the city were riddles and logical puzzles, placed in a sequence Marcus had to solve to proceed. Alien species often relied on brute power or pre-programmed knowledge, but humans excelled in abstract thinking. Marcus approached each puzzle with patience, observing patterns, decoding symbols, and using logic that even Zyria hadn't anticipated. She watched him solve them, her pride mixing with a begrudging fascination. This human wasn't just clever, he was seeing the simulation in a way she had not intended, bending her careful design to his advantage. "You are adapting too well," she said softly to herself. "I did not anticipate this level of ingenuity." Marcus reached the central plaza of the holographic city. The final challenge awaited, a maze of energy barriers, each shifting unpredictably, with drones actively pursuing him. Even Zyria expected him to falter here. Most humans would panic. But Marcus paused, scanned the area, and calculated the drone's predictable paths, timing his movements with precision. He sprinted, ducked, and weaved, moving like a shadow. At one point, he triggered an energy barrier to collapse on itself, creating a temporary bridge over a deadly gap. He continued, always thinking ahead, always anticipating the simulation's next move. From her observation deck, Zyria felt something strange: tension. Her fingers itched to intervene to make the trial impossible. Yet she knew she couldn't. If she interfered, she would admit the human had outsmarted her. The climax of the simulation arrived. A holographic predator, massive and fast, appeared to block Marcus's path. It had claws, fangs, and a terrifying speed, far beyond anything a human could naturally overcome. Zyria smiled thinly. "This will stop him," she muttered. Marcus didn't run. He analyzed the predator's movements, observing a pattern in its attack. Then, using the collapsing structures and shifting barriers, he lured it into a trap, forcing it to collide with the environment and deactivate itself. The predator fell, motionless, and Marcus stepped past it without a single scratch. Zyria blinked. The human had not only survived the ultimate test of agility and logic, but he had done so in a way that made her simulation fail itself. For the first time, she allowed herself a moment of doubt. Humans, she realized, were not creatures to underestimate. They were unpredictable, resilient, and capable of adapting to situations no alien could fully anticipate. "You are impressive," she said quietly, her tone softening. Marcus's calm eyes met hers. "Thank you, Princess. I've been underestimated before. It seems I'm used to it." Zyria's officers whispered among themselves, astonished. She had expected a display of brute strength or simple skill. Instead, Marcus had outsmarted everything she had thrown at him, relying only on intellect, patience, and quick thinking. Not satisfied with mere survival, Marcus began to study the patterns of the simulation actively. He noticed small inconsistencies, areas where the simulation recycled environments, repeated drone patterns, and predictable timing. He started to manipulate these glitches, using them to move faster, avoid danger, and reach the central tower in record time. Zyria's pride bristled. "No human should be able to do this," she muttered. "They are fragile, untrained, weak, yet this one moves as if the galaxy itself bends to him." Finally, Marcus reached the tower. He touched the control panel at the top and the simulation ended. The holographic city dissolved, leaving the bridge of the flagship pristine once again. Silence filled the room. For the first time, Zyria was speechless. She had designed the trial to push humans beyond their limits. Marcus had not only survived but had outperformed expectations in every aspect. Zyria studied him, her expression unreadable. Then she spoke, her voice calm but sharp. "You are unlike any human I have encountered." Marcus smiled faintly. "I'm just a human. That's all I need to be." The princess turned away, feeling a rare stir of respect mixed with irritation. Pride made it difficult to admit defeat, but internally she acknowledged the truth. Humans, even a single one, could challenge the greatest of her people. "We shall see how far your species can go," she said softly, almost to herself. "This is only the beginning." Meanwhile, Marcus noticed subtle things about the alien fleet, the bridge layout, and the princess's strategies. Even though the trial had been a simulation, the information he gathered could prove invaluable to humanity. Every movement, every calculation Zarya made was a clue, a map of how the Valith thought and acted. He smiled faintly. Humans were often underestimated. They were expected to fail. But time and again, humans found a way to turn expectation into advantage. And today was no different. As the trial concluded, Zarya addressed her officers. "Prepare the next challenge. This human is not like the others." The officers exchanged uneasy glances. Even they, trained and experienced, sensed a shift in their princess's attitude. She was no longer fully confident, no longer viewing humans as weak. There was a flicker of uncertainty, a subtle acknowledgement that humanity might be far more dangerous than anyone had dared to predict. Marcus, for his part, remained calm. He did not boast, did not gloat. He simply observed, learned, and waited. Humans understood one thing above all: patience, adaptability, and intelligence often mattered more than power. Zarya had created an environment designed to break him. Yet here he stood, unbroken, calm, and more aware than ever of the alien mindset. The next phase of their interaction would not be easy. Zarya would escalate. She would test him further in ways humans had never faced. But Marcus had already proven something crucial. Humans were not weak. Humans were clever, adaptable, and relentless in thought. And in the silent calculation of the human mind, a plan was forming, one that could turn even the mightiest alien challenge into an opportunity. Zarya could not see it yet. She only knew that Marcus had survived, and that survival alone was something few humans could claim. But in reality, he had done more than survive. He had observed, learned, and subtly gained the advantage. And for humans, that advantage could mean the difference between being dismissed as weak and being feared as clever, unstoppable, and unpredictable. As the bridge returned to its normal state, Marcus turned to Zarya. "So what's next?" he asked casually. Zarya met his gaze, her pride intact but shaken. "Next," she said slowly, "we see if your species can truly handle unpredictability." Marcus nodded. "I think we humans can manage. We've been underestimated before. We're used to it." And as the princess looked out into the starfield, she realized that underestimating humans had been her first mistake. The silence of the Valith royal flagship bridge was almost deafening. Princess Zarya paced slowly, her mind replaying every moment of the previous trials. Lieutenant Marcus Hale had survived every challenge she had designed. Not by strength, not by alien techniques, but through observation, cleverness, and patience. She refused to admit it aloud, but internally her pride was unsettled. For the first time, a human had forced her to reconsider the assumed limits of their species. Marcus, calm as ever, watched her pacing. There was no fear in his posture, only a quiet awareness. Humans thrived in moments like this. Pressure, challenge, and expectation were their tools as much as their weapons. "You have performed well," Zarya finally said, her voice measured. "But surviving is one thing, thriving is another. Can your species truly handle the unpredictability of the galaxy?" Marcus smiled faintly. "I think we humans can manage. That's what we've been doing since we could walk." Zarya's eyes narrowed. She decided it was time to end the trial. Not with a simulation this time, but with a direct challenge of skill, strategy, and intellect. "The final trial," she said, "will determine if your species deserves the attention of the Valith Empire. You will navigate a real tactical scenario. Success will give your people influence. Failure will teach you humility." Marcus inclined his head. "I'm ready." The bridge shifted subtly. Screens lit up with real-time tactical simulations of fleet maneuvers, planetary defenses, and diplomatic challenges. This was no longer a holographic test. It was an exercise in strategy, using live intelligence gathered by Valith scouts. Marcus would need to plan, anticipate, and execute with precision. Zyria explained the scenario. A human colony on the frontier is threatened by hostile factions. You have limited resources, limited support, and must make choices that determine the outcome. You will be judged on your strategy, your efficiency, and your understanding of alien systems. Marcus's mind worked quickly. He noted the limited forces, the vulnerable points, and the predictable behavior of the hostile factions. Humans were masters at thinking outside the expected framework. What aliens saw as chaos, humans saw as opportunity. He began to make decisions calmly and deliberately. Resources were allocated not based on brute force but on tactical advantage. Small, flexible units were sent to confuse the enemy. Defensive structures were reinforced where they mattered most, and diplomatic channels were subtly manipulated to turn potential threats into temporary allies. Zyria watched, her pride battling admiration. Every move Marcus made exploited weaknesses in her assumptions and even in her systems. She had designed this trial to challenge the sharpest minds of the galaxy. Yet here was a single human, outperforming expectations with cleverness, foresight, and patience. Hours passed. Marcus adjusted and recalculated at every turn. A feint here, a calculated retreat there. He avoided direct confrontation when it would cost lives or resources unnecessarily. Instead, he guided the simulation toward maximum efficiency with minimum risk, a concept foreign to the Valith, who valued glory and direct victories. Finally, Marcus reached the end of the scenario. The human colony had been secured. Hostile factions neutralized not through destruction but through strategic positioning and negotiation. Casualties were minimal. Efficiency was high. Diplomacy had been strengthened. Zyria stared at the results in disbelief. No human should have been able to achieve such success with her parameters. Impossible, she whispered. Marcus looked at her calmly. Nothing is impossible when you think differently. For a moment, silence filled the bridge. Zyria's officers looked uncertain, impressed yet hesitant to acknowledge it. The princess, however, could not ignore the truth. Marcus had done more than survive or adapt. He had outsmarted the very framework of the Empire in a scenario designed to be unbeatable. You have done something remarkable, human, Zyria admitted, her voice softening. I must acknowledge it, Marcus nodded politely. Thank you, princess. Recognition is appreciated, but it's not why I do it. Zyria paused. She had a choice. She could continue to assert her authority, dismissing the achievement as luck or anomaly, or she could recognize the potential of humans. Pride battled logic, but logic won. You have proven that humans are more than mere survivors, she said finally. Your species is clever, resourceful, and adaptable, perhaps underestimated. Marcus allowed himself a small smile. Underestimation is humanity's advantage. It lets us survive, adapt, and sometimes thrive where others fail. The princess's tone grew firm. Then you leave me no choice but to acknowledge your success in full. Humanity will be given diplomatic recognition and strategic consideration. Your species is no longer dismissed. Marcus nodded. That small acknowledgement was a victory in itself. Humanity had gained respect and influence without firing a single shot. Their ingenuity had outmatched centuries of alien expectation. Zyria took a deep breath. She felt a mixture of respect and unease. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but that made them powerful in ways her people rarely understood. She realized she had misjudged the species entirely. Meanwhile, Marcus turned his attention to the subtle advantages he had gathered during the trials. Maps, fleet layouts, communication patterns, and even minor flaws in Valith protocols. All of these could be reported back to Earth to strengthen human influence in future negotiations. Survival alone had become a strategic victory. The final ceremony was quiet but symbolic. Zyria stood before Marcus, her posture regal but her tone measured. "Human, you have done what no one expected. Your intellect, patience, and courage have earned the attention of the Valith Empire. This will not be forgotten." Marcus inclined his head respectfully. "Then humanity thanks you, Princess. And we will not forget either. We remember respect and opportunity." Zyria's officers exchanged glances. The princess had shifted from arrogance to respect in a matter of days, and it was clear to all that the humans were far from ordinary. Their calm, their cleverness, and their ability to outthink the most sophisticated systems of the Empire had made them a species to watch and to fear, if underestimated. Marcus and his team departed from the bridge. The trials had ended, but the results would echo through the corridors of the Valith Empire. Diplomats and leaders would now treat humans with caution, curiosity, and a newfound respect. In the quiet moments afterward, Zyria looked out at the stars, reflecting on the events. "We underestimated them," she murmured, "and that was our first mistake." The truth was undeniable. Humans, even one human, could change the balance of perception in the galaxy. Their adaptability, intelligence, and courage were unmatched by brute strength or tradition. They could survive situations no alien had considered possible, and they could do so without violence, relying only on their mind, their patience, and their will. On Earth, Marcus reported back to his superiors. Every detail of the trials, every observation of the Valith fleet, and every insight into the princess's strategies were carefully documented. Humanity had gained not just survival but a foothold in galactic diplomacy, and an example of their HFY spirit was etched clearly in the minds of an alien empire. Weeks later, communications arrived from the Valith Empire. Zyria herself sent a message. "The human species has proven remarkable. Your intelligence, adaptability, and ingenuity cannot be ignored. The galaxy will watch your actions with attention. We expect more." Marcus read the message and allowed himself a quiet smile. Humans had been underestimated. Humans had survived. Humans had earned respect without a single act of brute force, and that was exactly the point. Across the galaxy, whispers began to spread among alien civilizations. Humans were not just a minor species. They were clever, unpredictable, and a force to be reckoned with. And on the bridge of the Valith royal flagship, Zyria stared at the starfield once more. She could not erase the lesson she had learned. Humans were far more dangerous than anyone had believed. Not because they were strong, but because they were clever, persistent, and impossible to fully anticipate. For humanity, this was a beginning. A reminder that brains over brawn, patience over panic, and ingenuity over arrogance could win where sheer power failed. And for Princess Zyria, it was a lesson she would not forget. Never underestimate a human. The galaxy had changed. One human had proven it. And humanity would never stop surprising the stars.